Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can find us, or them actually, at PigskinPodNet on Twitter. Did I jump on? I felt like were you about to say something? Did I just jump in on you?
No, that's okay.
So Matt is here with me. It's the Matts together here on this beautiful Tuesday. We're going to talk, obviously, about I feel like there was some important stuff that happened on Sunday.
And in the 2 days since.
Yeah, and really we're just talking about the fact that Matt got to go see Ant-Man yesterday, and I am extremely jealous. We're going to talk all about that. Who cares about the Super Bowl? I'm just kidding. Obviously, we're going to break down the Super Bowl. What's an amazing game up until about the last minute 50. That's really when that game took a big drag. But how are you doing? Obviously, as I just mentioned, you got to go see Ant-Man. Anything else going on? Are you excited about before we jump into the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it was a fun game. It was some interesting commercials. I don't know about you. I really enjoyed the Dunkin' commercial.
Yeah.
Is this what you do when you say you're going to work all day? That cracked me up. And it was a very good game in the sense that it was competitive and back and forth.
Yeah.
I hate when we have a big game that comes down to a call that has little to do with the players.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Monday was fun. I worked remotely and got a ton done, which was good. I got to have lunch with my wife and then took her up to Denver for the critics screening.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't. I imagine a lot of.
I got my baby Ant-Man ticket and my baby Ant-Man.
That is.
So
I
they
saw.
gave
I
you
saw
a
you
little
post
magnifying
that. That is awesome, actually. Yeah, for those, I mean, I know we've got a pretty big crossover on that. We've always had some people who love the Marvel corner when we used to do that all the time. So I imagine everybody's going to be pretty excited to go see that movie this weekend. We were just talking before the show, and I'm really hoping to get a chance to go see it. I feel like this is one, and don't tip it off. I feel like this is one I can't wait for it to drop on Disney Plus. Like, I waited for Black Panther 2. I don't feel like I missed much. It was a good movie. I really enjoyed it, but I don't feel like I missed much not seeing it in theaters. I feel like this is one I can't wait for it to drop. I've got to go see it in theaters. As for the Dunkin' commercial, I felt that. I think that commercial resonated with me in a major way, because I feel like J-Lo's attitude toward Ben there was kind of what my wife does to me when she walks by and sees that I've been sitting on the couch for like 6 hours on my computer. She's like, I thought you said you were working. It's like, I am working. This is what you do. So I'm like, yeah, it's kind of what I do. So yeah, it's definitely felt that in my heart a little bit. So let's jump into the news. We've actually had a lot of news that has happened since the end of the Super Bowl. And then we will jump in and obviously talk about the Chiefs beating the Eagles 38-35. And let's start with the Eagles offensive coordinator going over to the Colts as they hire Shane. Is it Steichen to say? Is that
Steichen. I don't know.
He will be their new head coach, which is interesting because a lot of people were very worried that thought it might be Jeff Saturday with how long it was taking. They don't go that route. It's an interesting choice because realistically, let's be honest, he's been a big reason why Jalen Hurts has been kind of successful. these past couple years. We've seen him work with a mobile quarterback. Does maybe that mean he leans toward a Bryce Young, Will Levis, or Anthony Richardson? A lot of rumors that the Colts will be trying to get one of these quarterbacks. I believe even Jim Irsay mentioned that today at a press conference that we're going to get a young quarterback to build around. I don't know if they're actually going to do that. Apparently, Chris Greer was not very thrilled with that. Or was it Chris Greer? No, what's his name?
Chris Ballard.
Ballard, yeah. Ballard did not seem too thrilled with him making that statement.
What are they going to do with Matt Ryan? Because Matt Ryan said he absolutely isn't retiring.
I mean, they can't cut him, right? With the dead money on that, I think it's a lot of money. So he's probably just going to either sit on the bench or, I guess, get one more year until their rookie's ready to go. But, I mean, what do you think about the hire there with Stryken coming over here to the Colts?
I don't know what to make of it. The Colts are weird. The Colts and Cardinals, who we'll talk about in a minute, it makes more sense why this had been like the slowest coaching cycle, it felt like, in the world, especially since – the Colts let Reich go. This had to have been November.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right. Yeah,
it was pretty early. A few of these teams have had openings. I mean, Carolina had an opening since like early October, and it just seemed like it took forever for coaching to get hired. I don't know that much about Shane Steichen. I guess I didn't realize until the Super Bowl. I thought Nick Sirianni called the plays. I thought that's why they brought him in, was because wasn't he the offensive coordinator for Frank Reich with the Colts before he came over? So it's one of those, I guess we'll have a question about how much, was he doing? You always wonder a little bit about that, but it was a big day for Eagles coordinators. The first thing I thought, too, though, is it's still so sad. If you're going to take an offensive coordinator off a Super Bowl team, why wouldn't you take the winning team's offensive coordinator?
Man, there's been a lot of stuff about that, and I don't really know what to think. For those who don't know, Matt's obviously talking about Eric Bieniemy, who's we've probably talked about for at least the last 3 years. We thought would get a head coaching job at some point, throwing all these cycles, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And Andy Reid came out either yesterday or today and said that Eric Bieniemy might have to go take another offensive coordinator job somewhere before he'll get a head coaching job, which doesn't make any sense to me either. But the thing I don't know, so I don't want to report on this because I don't know if it's fact. There are a lot of rumors that he's got some very shady things in his past that may be why there's a holdup on that. I don't know. I mean, not every head coach has been a good person, so I don't really know how to put that. I see a lot of people saying, well, it's only because he's calling Andy Reid's system. Well, I mean, Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy both got head coaching jobs calling Andy Reid's quote-unquote system. So I don't know where the disconnect is here. There's something. There's something going on why Bieniemy isn't getting a head coaching job. Maybe he's not interviewing well. I really don't know. But, I mean, I feel like at this point, it's got to be something. Like, it can't be what we all think, right? It's got to be something else. There's just, I don't know. It's a weird subject to talk about because I feel
like he didn't even get a lot of interviews in this particular.
Not this year, yeah.
We didn't have any discussion, but Andy Reid couldn't have given him a seemingly more glowing endorsement. And we've seen plenty of Reid's, people who've coached under Reid go on and be successful. So I hope Shane Steichen does well. I don't know what to make of the Colts. They went from 5 years ago when Andrew Luck suddenly retired, a team that we thought had a chance to be in the Super Bowl, to I'm not even sure what they do well anymore.
Yeah, it's really, I don't want to say disappointing, but for lack of a better term, I'm going to use disappointing, and thinking about like, that probably was a Super Bowl roster with Andrew Luck, and then he just kind of left him in the lurch. It's kind of like, and I get it. It's his decision. I'm not blaming him for it, but like, I mean, I think they were right there. They improved that defense, top offensive line, and then he's just like, nah, I'm done. It was a very weird hire. I'm intrigued. I think the quarterback thing is going to be good.
Being that close to the season, especially. I won't begrudge a guy wanting to go, but that was like the last week of preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, it just happened at it was. I think it was a little bit. No, you. It may have been
It
that
was like
because
really close to
it
the
was really close to
season
the season
starting.
because I remember. So in my main dynasty league, we always do our rookie draft like right around that time, like week 3 of the preseason. And what we do is always expand rosters. Then you have to cut down. And I remember because the guy who kept Andrew Luck dropped a different quarterback. It's only a one QB league. And then Andrew Luck retires, and we all had like this big chance, like, should we let him get another? Because nobody expected, like, there was no rumors of that. It just like literally happened one day, and everybody's like, are we following the right Adam Schefter on Twitter kind of thing? It was a massive.
So
bomb.
his retirement was August 24th, 2019. It was during the final preseason game because the news broke during the game and people booed and like threw stuff as he was leaving.
Man.
I remember that's what the big like torrent, which you can't really blame Adam Schefter if he knows it's going to happen. He's got to, I don't know. He's got
that's
but August 24th, that's you're pretty much there. That's like the last week of preseason.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on that. I get having to do your job at the same time, like trying. There's certain things I don't know. It's a weird conversation to have, but yeah. For Shane Steichen, though, I'm interested. I think the quarterback's going to be the big one. Like I said he's worked with a mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I don't know if that means a lean toward one of those guys or what happens, but I do think it's a good hire. There's a lot of interesting pieces on that offense, at least for him to build around. Next news item here. The Cardinals finally get their head coach in Jonathan Gannon. Interesting choice here, as in it seemed like a lot of other head coaches in the industry did not want to go there because, or at least the rumors were they did not want to deal with Kyler Murray. What are your thoughts here on Gannon going to the Cardinals?
Yeah, kind of another interesting. The Eagles defense has been pretty good. I know the Cardinals were seemingly looking at some defensive coaching options. They supposedly considered Vance Joseph their own defensive coordinator, maybe going in a different direction. I think for Gannon, he's probably rolling into something of a rebuilding project too. They have a new GM as well. I strongly feel like Hopkins will move this offseason. I think Ertz is gone. I think the high-priced veterans that they had in there probably move on. I know people have optimistically said Kyler Murray is going to be ready pretty close to the beginning of the season. I think it's after Thanksgiving. He tore his ACL at the end of December. That's why, when we were doing the free agent special, I flew to Dennis. I actually thought somebody like Tyler Huntley signing there might be decent because then he would get a chance to see what he could do. But 2023, if the Cardinals are being realistic, should be viewed as something of a lost season. And even some analysts have talked about that. For Arizona, it's probably a lost season. You have to start turning over the roster. But young, first-time head coach with defensive experience, it's going to matter who they surround him with, especially getting that offensive coordinator is going to be pretty important because Kyler Murray essentially came out of college into a variation of his college scheme with Cliff Kingsbury, that air raid. And I don't know that it's been incredibly successful. They have never really developed much of a run game around him. And so now you have kind of Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore, which is a weird piece, and Trey McBride to build around because I think those bigger veterans are gone. AJ Green obviously retired.
Yeah.
I liked Dortch, but there's probably some questions, and I don't know that you're ever going to see in 2023 what that offense can be. It's almost going to be kind of, not for wholly different reasons, but what we saw with the Browns this last year, where you probably have a placeholder QB for a majority of the season, then you get like a 5 or 6 week run at the end.
Yeah, I saw something that said that they don't expect Murray to be back to like week 6. So I wouldn't expect him back even before that. I think that's being optimistic. I mean, he tore it at the end of the year, didn't he?
Yeah, it was in December.
I mean, I think I'll be very curious to see what happens with Murray. I'm with you. I feel bad for. I think if you're offered a head coaching job, I think most people are going to take it, especially a guy like Gannon, young, first chance to be a head coach. I wonder if he's. I hate to put it this way. I wonder if he's almost like a placeholder head coach right now because of what you just mentioned. And like they're going into a rebuild. They're just going to try and rebuild for a couple of years, and then he's going to be gone, and they're going to bring somebody else. I mean, they've been a very weird franchise for the past couple of years. You know, we've talked a lot about they probably should have moved on from Cliff way before they did. I'll be very curious to see what happens. Like, I think he's going into a very tough situation because you could argue that's one of probably not the best, but one of the best divisions in all of the NFL right now. You got the 49ers and Seattle, who surprised a lot of people. The Rams, you know, I still believe in McVay, and if Stafford and those guys come back and they're all healthy, they're probably going to be a good team. I mean, that's a tough division to try and win in, especially when you're not going to have your starting quarterback for probably half the season. So it's definitely going to be a weird 2023 for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Gannon if they're giving him the David Culley treatment. You know, I don't know if they've announced the deals for Strike and Gannon. I'm always curious what the money and the years are, because that tells you a little bit about the commitment. But it's just going to depend on if the Cardinals are being realistic about their situation, because when they had to kind of clean sweep the front office and coach, and you have a quarterback who you made a big commitment to is not going to be available, you're not ready to go to start 2023.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any actual numbers on the deals. I was trying to find them too as we were talking.
If you see like a 2 or a 3 year $1 million a year deal, then I'm starting to get concerned.
The next bit of news to come out here earlier today is the Ravens hire Todd Monken for the offense. It's an intriguing fit. Monken, obviously the offensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs the past 2 years, really good offense in college, was the Browns offensive coordinator last time he was in the NFL. That did not work out so well, obviously, although a lot of that I think was just the Browns in general were kind of a mess at the time. It's intriguing to me because if Lamar comes back, I still don't know that it's a solid, for sure thing that Lamar will be with Baltimore. He's a different quarterback than Monken's ever had. And I'll be very curious to see how that offense works. But, I mean, he scripted some incredibly great plays on the college side of things for Georgia. Was, in my opinion, I thought he was going to get a head coaching job somewhere, at least in college football. Does take the step up to go back to the NFL, the offensive coordinator. It's going to be intriguing. He's got at least, Mark Andrews. But we saw what he was able to do with Brock Bowers at the college level. Could be a big thing. But again, I think a lot of that comes down to who's their quarterback going to be. Because you mentioned Tyler Huntley to Arizona. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Huntley's the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens next year because Lamar is gone. Like, I'm very intrigued to see what happens with this whole Lamar. I do not think it's a set in stone thing that Lamar will be the starting quarterback for Baltimore next year.
Well, supposedly they're going to franchise tag him.
So supposedly the rumors they're going to do the exclusive franchise tag, which is like $48 million a year. But that one, Lamar does not have to sign. Now, that means he won't play and he won't accrue that season. But that also screws the Ravens because once you do the exclusive franchise tag, that money is on that. They can't use that money until Lamar signs. And even if he doesn't, it's still locked up in like their salary cap. They can't use it. So, and the problem I'm seeing with this is, Lamar wants like Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson money. I don't know that he's going to get $230 guaranteed like Deshaun Watson did. But Kyler Murray, I believe, got guaranteed like right around 160, 170, same as Russell Wilson. In my opinion, Lamar deserves more than that. So I don't think it's unfair to ask for 180, 190 guaranteed. But it doesn't seem like they're willing to pay them that. The last contract we heard it was reported was that Baltimore offered him like 120 guaranteed. It was like 190 million. Like Lamar doesn't want that. So they're like 80 million apart on this money. Like that's not like 10 or 20 mil where you think they're going to come together. And it seems very contentious as well throughout this entire season. You got Ravens fans and players kind of hinting at that maybe Lamar was healthy and could have come back and played. Lamar hasn't said anything. You've got GM coming out and saying, "Oh, well, we'd like to sign these wide receivers, but we're kind of hamstrung having to pay this quarterback all the money." So it's a weird little whole thing going on right now. The song and dance with Baltimore and Lamar.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. That is a big domino, and that's what it's hard to tell if this signing would have made it more or less appealing. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I mean, yeah.
Baltimore has myriad problems with their offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Lamar is back, well, I'll put it this way: even if it's Huntley, whoever the quarterback is, I do think it will be a good thing for Baltimore. Because I do think Todd Monken is a good offensive coordinator. So I think it will be good. I just don't know who the quarterback's going to be. So I think that may limit how good it can be.
If they're not going to get Lamar, I don't know why they'd invest in Todd Huntley as a starting quarterback. I saw Huntley going somewhere where he could be in a mix, or he could be like a Jacoby Brissett. That's why I thought Arizona is not a bad place, because Murray is going to have a somewhat similar skill set too. But if Baltimore decides that they're not going with Lamar, even with the quarterback landscape that's out there, I think they would go in a whole different direction.
We shall see. It's going to be interesting. The Panthers bring on Jim Caldwell. What are your thoughts on this? Last we saw of Jim Caldwell, I believe he was 500 with the Detroit Lions, taking them to the playoffs. Did he take them to the playoffs and then get fired?
Yeah, he took them to the playoffs. He was a little over in one of those seasons. I think they got to 10 wins, was the last Lions coach to make the playoffs, but it wasn't good enough, so they went for Matt Patricia. He was also at the Colt, a former Colt, and I didn't realize that both he and Reich were on Tony Dungy's staff together. Yep. I thought it was interesting. It's the kind of move that you almost expect with a younger coach, and like they brought on Ejiro Evero for defense, and then went and got Dom Capers to be the senior defensive assistant. And now they've brought in Caldwell to be like the assistant head coach with Frank Reich. I don't know if this is because Reich is planning to spend more of his time focusing on building the offense, because in the description they said Caldwell will be working with offense, defense, and special teams. Mm-hmm. So if he's handling more like game managing duties, but it's been a very interesting way that the Panthers have kind of gone about rebuilding the head coach. They also said this is now the third person that interviewed for the head coaching job that is hired onto the staff, because Reich got it and Evero and now Caldwell signed on. I just thought it was a very interesting move, the kind of thing you would expect more, like I said, with a younger or less experienced head coach.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is what he's wanting, is like Caldwell to kind of be the CEO types and run everything and let him just kind of focus on the offense. I mean, we've seen that a lot of coaches who try to just focus on one side of the ball don't always necessarily succeed. So maybe this is his way of fixing that. I mean, it's great to see Caldwell back in like some kind of coaching. It's been weird that he hasn't gotten another job. We just talked about took the Detroit Lions to the playoffs is something not a lot of people would expect regardless, and then they have not been very successful since then. So it's good to see him, though, back on the sidelines. And last but not least, no trade for Derek Carr. We're going to talk about this one for a little bit here. He has been released by the Raiders, and Raiders fans are up in arms. I imagine you probably don't care, but they are very upset that Derek Carr decided not to waive his no-trade clause to help out the Raiders in going to New Orleans so the Raiders could get something back for him. Instead, the Raiders have to cut him, eat his dead money, and now he gets to be a free agent. He can sign anywhere. Now, Derek Carr did say that he didn't want to take a pay cut. It seemed like the Saints were going to have to give him some kind of pay cut because they couldn't afford his contract on the books. But even if that weren't the case, I don't have an issue with Derek Carr telling the Raiders to kind of F off. I mean, they're the ones who decided they wanted to move on from him after paying him that contract. Was that a year ago? 2 years ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I think.
I don't he's not beholden to them and does not owe the Raiders one thing. it's a business when the NFL wants it to be. Why can't it be a business when Derek Carr wants it to be? I think what Derek Carr did is perfectly fine, but I did see a lot of people were upset about the fact that he wouldn't work with the Raiders on that. What are your thoughts here on now Derek Carr becoming a free agent, which I'd imagine he's probably, I mean, outside of if Lamar becomes a free agent, I feel like he's probably going to be the premier candidate at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't have if I was Derek Carr. They seemingly blamed him for all of the Raiders' problems, even though they have Josh McDaniels as the cancer in their own clubhouse. And then not only that, they not only benched him, he essentially got banished. Why? Why would he work with them? And why would he let them send him? I also think if there are teams he's interested in, he would have realized that that contract situation would have made it almost impossible to get any kind of good deals done. Now he can go wherever he wants.
Where you have a fit for him you like the best?
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I kind of liked when they were talking about Tampa Bay.
Interesting. I think he'd be a good fit for the Jets.
Well, it looks like the Jets are pretty close to trading for Ryan Tannehill.
Which is why I would definitely go for Derek Carr if I'm the Jets. I think he is much better than Ryan Tannehill, but I did see that report earlier that they might be going for Ryan Tannehill.
Rumored for Carr, for Aaron Rodgers instead.
Yeah. Ryan Tannehill. Well, hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? They're better than Zach Wilson. All right, let's talk about this Super Bowl. The Chiefs ended up coming out on top 38-35. What were your thoughts on the game overall?
It was pretty interesting and exciting at times. Hurts did what he's been doing all season. I thought there were some fun plays with Devonta Smith, and that bomb to A.J. Brown was fun. It was interesting to see how they were dominating the clock, especially in the first half, not getting anything going for Kansas City. And it was fairly surprising how good Mahomes looked coming back in the second half, because when he got clipped at the end of the half, you thought it was a little bit like the Jacksonville situation where he might actually have to come out and Henny might have to appear. It was interesting. The Chiefs made a lot of good adjustments at the half. I thought Pacheco ran well. I thought the way he was able to connect with Juju Smith-Schuster was interesting. Mostly, I was surprised neither defense was good.
Yeah, that was the bigger surprise to me. I really thought, we talked a lot about it on Friday, right? Like, I thought the Eagles defense was going to keep this a close game. Now, it ended up being sacks. But I thought, like, a close game is I thought it was going to be like a 21-24 type game, not 35-38. So, I think the adjustments was the key. And the fact that Philly couldn't put away Kansas City, I think if Philly scores one more touchdown in the first half, you talk about how much of the clock they controlled, they probably win that game. I got to give it to Mahomes. That what he did was amazing. I think, in my opinion, the better team lost the Super Bowl, but the best player won it. He went out there, he put them on his back. Hurt his ankle, as you mentioned. He was limping off the field, looked like he could barely put weight on it. He seemed fine walking into the locker room. They showed him right before the halftime show. I want to know how many shots he took in that ankle to be able to go back out there, because that thing had to be hurting. But for him to be able to go out in the second half and bring them back into the game and then take the lead and end up winning it, like, it's hard to say he's the best quarterback of our generation, because we both have gotten a chance to watch Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, but would you be surprised if by the end of his career that we're saying that? Was it 2 Super Bowls in 5 years? Like, that's...
Yeah, and he's been to 3.
That's pretty damn good.
Depends on how long he plays. He's not the kind of brutal runner where you think he might end up shortening his career. It was definitely a good performance by them, especially that offensive line. 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, they really got laid out because they couldn't protect Mahomes, and they spent a lot of time investing in that line, and it paid off because we've seen Philly just destroy everyone up front, and they couldn't get a whiff in there. 0 sacks, 0 turnovers.
They were the leaders in sacks this year, I believe, and they couldn't do anything, which, again, props to Kansas City. I think a lot of that has to go to Andy Reid and that offense for being able to scheme that up. And then you mentioned the adjustments they made at halftime. I think that's the key because it didn't feel like the Eagles made any adjustments. They kept running their same plays, same defense, same offense, and it seemed to sputter in that second half.
They were up 24-14 at the half, so they probably thought they were in good shape.
No, you can't though.
Like, put that ball on the ground though to get, because it wasn't just that he fumbled it. Return for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I thought that was a real unfortunate swing.
I mean, that might have been the turning point, but even then, like, you can't rest. You know, it's. I hate to use this example if we have any Falcons fans. I'm sorry, but it's like going against Tom Brady. It doesn't matter how much you're up on him. You cannot quit. Doesn't matter if you end up beating him by 4 touchdowns. You've got to keep pouring it on, right? You can't. It's Patrick Mahomes on this. It's not Kirk Cousins. You're not going up against it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, he will find a way to win that game. So I think a lot of props have to go to him in Kansas City for finding a way to get that done. Because I did think, in all honesty, watching, like, I thought the Eagles were the better team throughout the entire game. It really just kind of came down to Patrick Mahomes being the best player on the field. And I think he's pretty much put himself, we've kind of talked the past couple years back and forth about, who's QB1. Is it Mahomes and Allen in the top tier? Like, I think Mahomes has got to be in a tier of his own at this point, and then it's everybody else below him. Do you agree with that? Would you still put Josh Allen up there? Like, I kind of feel like it's got to be Mahomes by himself.
For fantasy, I still have Josh Allen ahead because the rushing upside and everything. But it depends on whether you're talking about fantasy or just NFL.
Both. Let's just give me both. I'll agree with you on Allen. Probably deserves to still be
fantasy, Allen, but I'm not sure I would have Allen above Burrow for talking about NFL either.
Interesting.
If you're just talking about from an NFL,
yeah,
I love Josh Allen. I'm happy to have him on my fantasy team. He hasn't gotten out of some of these big games, and they're not all his fault, but I actually did not think he played particularly well in his playoffs.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow has fought through a lot and gone to a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes has been to the Super Bowl 3 times. It's the same, I like Herbert too, but at some point you got to win important games. From an NFL standpoint, that's a little bit different than fantasy,
No, I agree with you. It's a weird conversation to have because Mahomes is in essence, he did it all by himself this year. If you look at it from that point of view, I mean, they took away Tyreek Hill. Obviously, still has Travis Kelce. But they take away Tyreek Hill, and everybody, I don't remember if we said it, but I know a lot of people like, there's no way that Mahomes is going to be that good this year. He just lost his best weapon. He had the best season statistically he's ever had. Burrow does have, like, amazing weapons around him. Now, I'm not trying to discredit Burrow at all. He is also amazing. He has got ice water in his veins. That dude does not seem like he could have 5 blitzers running straight at him, and he still finds a way to navigate out of it and get the ball off. Like, he's incredible.
Last year, I think, though, in particular, overcoming the offensive line woes that they had.
Exactly. My big thing with, I guess, Allen, specifically Herbert, Allen at least has Diggs. But the offensive line, in my opinion, is not that good. They have absolutely no running game. Like, outside of Diggs, who it feels like can be a little bit of a prima donna at times compared to Chase and Higgins, which I don't think you ever see that out of those two guys. And then Herbert has nobody. Like, that's my biggest issue with Herbert is, like, he's got Austin Eckler.
Keenan Allen.
I mean, Keenan Allen. Like, I love Keenan Allen, but he's been on the shelf all this year because of injury, and even the year before that with all the injuries and everything. Like, I'm not putting them in that category either. I think it definitely should be. I could see the argument for putting Burrow up there with Mahomes, but, like, I don't want to knock Allen or Herbert just yet. I want to see if they can get some kind of help, if maybe that can help them raise their game a little bit. But
I also wonder, part of me, seeing the way this offseason played out, maybe we were underrating Brian Daboll's contribution to
100%. Yeah,
because that was a big difference, and that's certainly a concern I've had for Herbert. I don't know what
Yeah,
kind of.
Kellen Moore. Yeah, yeah, I'm not
I
thrilled
guess
about
now I
that.
have that same kind of concern for myself because I think Lombardi just went over to join Sean Payton
Yep.
in
Yeah.
Denver.
I'm yeah, not really
I've
sure
just talked
what
myself
to
into
think.
sadness. It's day 3 of the
Hey,
off season.
you know what the good thing will be? Probably means your boy's coming over to Denver, Taysom Hill. You're gonna have a nice QB rotation with Taysom Hill and Russell Wilson. So at least you have that to root for. You'll have that going for you.
He was tied at 9 in fantasy.
There
Nothing.
you go. It's all that matters. All right, we've got to talk about the call of all calls here, and I tweeted this out when it happened because we actually spent some time talking about it on Friday. And how ironic is it that Roger Goodell before the Super Bowl comes out and says that refereeing has been the best it has ever been, and then now this call has like marred the Super Bowl. It's all anybody's talking about, and I agree with you. We shouldn't take away from the fact that it was a great game. But I also think like that call really did ruin that game, in my opinion. I'm not saying that the Chiefs still wouldn't have won, and I get that Bradbury admitted that he pulled on the jersey. But when you have literally every single NFL analyst out there, including I can't remember who the well, I believe the referee guy was it Mike. I don't remember who it is, Gene Steratore, or was it what? I don't
Uh,
remember which one it was, but
Mike Pereira
was
is
it Pereira? I
Foxman.
think
Yeah.
he technically agreed with the call. He said, well, it looks like he pulled on him right there. And Bradbury did admit that he pulled, but like everybody else was like, that's a play you let go. And it, in my opinion, was not that egregious. And I don't think even if he doesn't touch Juju Smith-Schuster's shirt that he's catching that ball. That was practically uncatchable. And it sucks that that's the last thing. Like, had that happened like in the third quarter, I don't think that we're talking about it. But the fact that extended the Chiefs' drive, allowed them to run the clock out pretty much, and then kick the game-winning field goal in essence, it just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth personally.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily that it was a bad call in that it didn't happen. I think it was a bad situation in that where it happened and that it didn't seem to be in keeping with how the rest of the game had been officiated.
Yeah.
But it's always just deflating when a call like that basically ends the game.
Yeah.
Especially a game like that.
Yeah, because it was. I think you could make the argument that goes down as like one of the best, at least one of the best Super Bowls I've watched. And then that, and it's just kind of like, okay, cool. Like that kind of just, it took all the air out of the game. And they said it was just ironic that we had Goodell days beforehand talking about how great refereeing was. And now this, I feel like that's always going to be linked, unfortunately, with the Super Bowl.
Well, and it doesn't help any of the conspiracy theorists out there because there was a lot of questions about some of the calls that were made during the end of the AFC Championship game too.
Yeah, that was. Maybe Goodell should go back and think on that statement. A little bit rough. Maybe it was a great year.
I stand
a little
by
bit
what
rough
I
in the
said.
playoffs. A little bit rough in the playoffs.
It just was a dumb thing to say, no matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree with you. What were your thoughts on pregame and the halftime entertainment?
So I thought the halftime was fine. I was kind of over all the. Seemed like all the chatter was then just became about whether she was pregnant, and I could care less.
She is. If you
yeah, well, no, I mean,
yeah.
I thought the halftime was fine. It was okay. It wasn't like incredible. I liked the songs. It was weird how they get you hyped up when she starts playing like some of the bigger rap songs where all she does is the hook or the intro, and you're like, oh, here's where the guests coming out, and then nobody comes out and they just transfer them. Like, I think you sort of misunderstood. No one listens to all of the lights for the all of the lights part.
Yeah.
And people don't really listen to the Run This Town but that's how. Some of the dancing was weird. Their outfits were definitely weird. Pre-game, it was more interesting. I was blown away by Cheryl Lee Ralph. I love Abbott Elementary. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I've not.
So I was kind of excited to see her perform. But then I guess I had a completely different reaction to the national anthem because as it was going, I'm like, this is horrendous. I actually muted it for part of it And then online, it's just like he won the Super Bowl. It's the greatest rendition of all time, and I'm like, did I watch a different game?
So you're telling me you did not have tears in your eyes like Nick Sirianni? That did not get you going.
No, it did not. I mean, I had tears, but they were wholly different reasons.
Understandable. Yeah, I would be honest. I didn't watch it, so I honestly don't know. I saw the memes and everything. I was finishing making some food with my wife before the game kicked off, so I didn't see any of that. I really didn't watch a lot of the pregame stuff either. Unfortunately, I kind of came in right.
Horrendous. I nodded off for a while.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I really honestly came in like right around the coin toss, and that's really kind of where I picked up my Super Bowl experience. I did enjoy that halftime show. Maybe I'm just a massive fan of Rihanna. Not only because I think she's beautiful, but I think she's extremely talented. Thought it was great. I mean, I get the dancing probably wasn't great. She is pregnant. I mean, I'm not going to knock her for doing much.
I mean, it was fine.
I saw a lot of people knocking her for not doing a lot of dancing. I'm like, I mean, she's like probably 5 months pregnant. Like, I'm not. I feel like sometimes I'm 5 months pregnant after eating a couple pieces of pizza and I don't want to do anything. So
I was confused because in the pregame, they did a big thing about her 3 months after having given birth doing, prepping this halftime show. Yeah. So I thought she must have given birth in it was last May. So that must be when she signed on. But I don't remember them announcing that she was going to be the Super Bowl halftime until like November or December. So I was like, oh, this tracks, she gave birth. So that part was very confusing.
Yeah. Overall, I thought it was a great halftime show. I don't know if it was – I don't really rank them. Like, I saw some people saying it's the best. Some people didn't like it.
It has to do with how you enjoy the music. I liked a lot of the songs.
Yeah. I like the music. It's always good. All right, so going back to the Philadelphia Eagles, what do you expect from them this offseason? Obviously just lost their offensive and defensive coordinator, and probably have to pay Jalen Hurts. But overall, still a very talented team.
Yeah, and what are they going to do at running back? I thought Gainwell looked decent in that game. Are they going to give him a shot? Are they going to go out and get somebody? Are they going to try to bring Miles Sanders back on a cheap deal? I think they have their 3 core passing pieces, which should be good. They have to figure out Hurts, probably figure out a couple of defensive pieces, and then reload some of the coaching staff. But it seems like they're poised to be contenders again next year.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me will be obviously what happens with Jason Kelce as well. Could retire. There was a lot of talk that he was going to retire before this season. I think a big key for that Eagles offense is how good that offensive line is. So hopefully he stays. But I think as long as he's there, I mean, we saw it this year. The running game wasn't that good, and they got to the Super Bowl. Like, I think they're going to be just fine. Again, what's the Hurts contract going to look like? How much does that possibly hamper them paying other players? Overall, though, I think this team should be a team that contends at least a playoff team, and probably is going to be viewed as a I don't want to say Super Bowl favorite, but an NFC favorite at least going into the 2023 season. What about the Chiefs? What do the Chiefs need to do to run it back?
Well, they have fewer questions. I think it was solid there with Pacheco. They probably found something as a runner. I'm curious what they'll do with their receivers. Juju's a free agent. They went and got Kadarius Toney. Can you really rely on him? Are they going to ever use Sky Moore more? Are they looking at bringing some of the young guys up? MVS is still there, but Hardman also a free agent. But then at the same time, it'd be hard for them to lose more than they lost this offseason, and Mahomes still was fine.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they keep paying the refs, I think they're going to be perfectly fine. They'll be AFC favorites and probably head to the Super Bowl once again. So not too worried about that. When you have the refs on your side, anything is possible. No, I think that
5 straight AFC championship games pretty impressive.
I think they'll be fine. I mean, even it's hard for me to doubt them, even with the questions at the wide receiver core, because we had a lot of questions about that wide receiver core this year, and it didn't matter. So as long as they've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I think they're going to be fine. I mean, it looks like they found a steal in Isaiah Pacheco. He looked really good. In my opinion, he was the best running back in that game. So I think that they're going to be perfectly fine with him moving forward. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think it's going to be between them and probably the Bengals. I don't even know if I put the Bills up there with them right now. I think it's the Chiefs and Bengals.
Bills have to answer questions. Yeah. I mean, I love the Bills, and I've been shilling for them hard the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But they're almost like the Cowboys of the AFC. You've got to win a game you're supposed to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, which it sucks. I'd love to see Josh Allen get a Super Bowl in my lifetime. I'm a big fan of him. Also, Joe Burrow, Mahomes. Let somebody else win it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like let's let somebody else win it.
Yeah, it's poor Buffalo.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it though for us today. We'll be back on Friday. Dennis, Matt, and myself. I don't even know what we're going to be talking about.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So you have to tune in Friday to find out. Matt, since Dennis is not here, I'm going to ask you. You're sitting around, not doing anything. This podcast is coming to an end. What should you go do?
I mean, it's a great time to go to your favorite podcasting app, go download, give a listen, listen to some older episodes. You can always listen to our 2022 NFL season predictions during this season, just to have some good roasting material. Put in the comments.
Seahawks,
rate and review. That's probably not our worst. I think Dennis had Chargers, Rams going to the Super Bowl preseason. So, a little bit short.
I think mine was Chargers Packers, so it wasn't much better.
Remember when we thought the AFC West was going to be God's gift to football this year?
Yeah. I think I had 3 teams getting in with the Raiders just missing. That did not work out so well. Yeah,
the Raiders did just miss, though.
Yeah, hey, at least I got that one right. One of the very few things I got right. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I had the Browns almost making it in as well. So it was a great season. All right, we'll be back on Friday, everybody. Have yourselves a great day.